All right, welcome. Here's my reaction to the recent awards they announced last night at the awards event. A lot of these, it's every year. I'm usually wrong as to who I pick. So I did a video on who I thought would win. I didn't publish it because I knew it was only halfway through the season before the trade deadline. I knew it would be wrong. Um, it's kind of cool to see most of my picks were right, but that's the first year, and it's usually one of those scenarios where you never really know. It could be really anybody. You can make a good case for a lot of people. You never know if it's going to be influenced because they're the new face of the NHL, maybe when their stats aren't quite there. So here's my brief reaction. The Norris Trophy, which goes for best defenseman in the entire NHL. Recently, it's turned into a bit of a points contest, so you got to score points and have offensive production to make this list. It doesn't necessarily speak for the best defensive defenseman. There's a whole argument whether there should be another award for that or not. I think that'd be cool, but at the same time, then you're really distinguishing offense from defense. But, I'm wearing my Erik Karlsson jersey in San Jose. It was discounted, so... and I love the black San Jose jerseys. But he's purely an offensive defenseman, as is Makar. Makar's a great guy. He's great for the locker room. Dude's unbelievable offensive talent. I think his defense is very, very overrated. His defensive metrics are good because he plays on a line with Taves, who's very good in his own zone, and he usually plays with that first line, Landeskog, Granton, and McKinnon. When they're on the ice, Makar's usually on the ice, and they're pretty good in their own zone too. Those are three 200-foot players, and I don't think they get enough credit for the defense they play. But that helps Makar's stats a bit. What also helps is Makar doesn't take a lot of faceoffs in his own defensive zone. He's typically taking faceoffs in the offensive zone, especially if there's an icing or that's a terrible example. We're just going to exclude that. If there's an icing, you can't get off the ice and swap out your defenseman. But it's just Makar's good. He's not bad defensively, but I don't think he's elite like his underlying stats are saying. I think those can be misleading sometimes. You really have to watch the player, watch the game to get a better feel. So there's no doubt, Makar is a great defenseman, if not one of the best in the league. But I think a lot of his talent is on the offensive side of the puck. Josi is more of a 200-foot player, but he kind of sold out this year. It's not sell out, but sacrificed his defense for offense. He was caught driving in the offensive zone quite a bit more than he has in prior seasons. As a result, his point production was up a lot. He scored a lot of points. He was a huge factor in their offense. But he also became a defensive liability, and he's a very good defenseman in his own zone. And you can't sacrifice one for the other. You got to be kind of a 200-foot player, as Victor Hedman. So Josi on the power play, though, he was the Nashville Predators power play. He was the guy. The Avalanche. Oh, it's thundering. That was weird. The Avalanche have weapons. Nashville Predators have Forsberg and Duchesne. Those are their weapons. Josi was their offensive weapon on the power play. Hedman, Tampa has weapons. Boston, with McAvoy, and New York, they both have weapons on offense. You got Pastrnak, Bergeron, Marchand, Taylor Hall. You have Zibanejad, Panarin, Chris Kreider, 50 goal scorer. Half of those, 52, half of them came on the power play, right? So I think that speaks volume to Josi's impact on the Predators. I'm going to take the unpopular opinion. I'd go with Hedman. I think Hedman, the way he plays in his own zone, the way he provides offense without sacrificing that defense it's inhuman. It's every time I watch him, he's just on this other level of being a two-way defenseman. It's, I don't root for Tampa as, a Bruins fan. I root against Tampa. My aunt and uncle live in Tampa, and they've become Tampa Bay Lightning fans, and it's a little annoying. So we, there's good banter there. But our, I'm very jealous of Tampa having Victor Hedman because the dude is an animal. That's probably who I would pick. I'd probably do Hedman, Josi, Makar. Obviously, this is more of a points race. It's a little more. There's more discussion about the offensive aspect of the position rather than the defense, which is odd because McAvoy at fourth, as a Bruins fan, surprised me. He was good, but at the same time, he was still sacrificing his defense for offensive production, kind of leaving his goalie and just high and dry with 2-on-1 breakaways, 2-on-0, 1-on-0 breakaways. It was just, luckily Hampus Lindholm came, and the few games they played together, Lindholm had the back, but he was still getting a lot of 2-on-1 breakaways because McAvoy would drive up into the zone. I've been really impressed with Fox's development this past year. His defense is a lot better than it has been, and his offensive production is still there. Yeah, a lot of them are assists, but a lot of the point production from a defensive player is typically going to be assists, with the exception of Makar and Josi. I think Makar hit over 20 goals. I think Josi hit 20 goals. I don't know. As a Bruins fan, I think Fox should have been ranked above McAvoy, but that's just opinion. Calder, no surprise. Moritz Seider won the Calder trophies, defenseman in Detroit. Calder's for Rookie of the Year. Absolutely should have won that. That was a runaway trophy. If anyone else won it, I think the whole all NHL fans would be upset. Zegras was kind of the Rookie of the Year poster boy for a bit. A lot of highlight reel goals. Talented, no doubt, but really fell off the second half of the season. Bunting barely met the cutoff to be a rookie, considered a rookie because of his age. It was really close. He's 2 years older than Kaprizov, for perspective. Just throwing that out there. Bunting also played on a line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, two incredible players. Both Matthews and Marner are 200-foot players. They play good defense, and it's kind of admirable considering how much offense they produce. It's incredible, and I respect that. Bunting is obviously going to be a beneficiary of playing with a great playmaker like Marner, a great goal scorer like Austin Matthews, who, by the way, did pretty excellent in the faceoff circle this year. His stats have been significantly increasing. Bunting's obviously going to be the recipient of a lot of points on that end. And his two other forwards play defense, so that gives Bunting more chance to drive up in the offensive zone. I don't think Bunting is as good of a player as his stats indicate, but nonetheless, he's third in Calder votes. Raymond was great. Jeremy Swayman was great. Lundell, we had Lundell. Who was it? Lundell, Raymond, and Seider, and Zegras was kind of in the mix halfway through the season. Lundell fell all the way to sixth. Jeremy Swayman became more of a 1A goalie in Boston, played a lot more games and played well, had good stats, and surpassed him. Luke Raymond kind of fell off a bit at the end too, kind of like Zegras, but dude, this is a good rookie class. There's great players here. You're going to have, all these players have really bright futures. It's just interesting to kind of compare. On to the Vezina, best goaltender in the NHL award, essentially. Won by Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers. Again, zero surprise. Shesterkin was on another level this year. Numbers, I don't know if I've ever seen numbers like that. Just absolute shutout of a goalie. Incredible season. 100% should have won that trophy. Again, I'm a Boston fan. You got the original six thing going. I don't like the Rangers. I don't root for them by any means. No New York team gets rooted for. But Shesterkin, oh my God, he was so much fun to watch. Rangers fans should be excited. He's a tank. Second place was Markstrom. Got off to a really hot start. I think he had 9 shutouts this past season. Kind of tailed off at the end of the season, but his overall numbers for the entire season were solid. They were very good. So that's great. UC Stars of Nashville came in third. Nashville Predators goalie, again, one of the four MVPs of the team, and I hate giving Matt Duchene one of those titles, but Saros stood on his head at times. On his head. Saros was great. His numbers aren't quite where Markstrom and Shesterkin's is, but Saros was the reason the Nashville Predators won as many games as they did. He was fantastic. Freddie Anderson in fourth. Anderson's a good goalie. He had great defense in front of him, which isn't Anderson's fault. If anything, it helps him. It helps his stats, which is great. He was excellent in Carolina. He had some tough games, and he stood on his head every once in a while. So, that's good. Vasilevsky, Tampa Bay's goalie, he's a playoff goalie. He will win you a championship. Dude is shut down in net in the playoffs. He's all right during the regular season. Good, stats where you want them. Usually 916 to 919 is usually where he ends his season in save percentage. So, nonetheless, one of the elite goalies in the league. What kind of shocked me was Ilya Sorokin of the New York Islanders finished sixth. He was on a dreadful team this year. It was hard to play in that building on the road. Ilya Sorokin's stats were unbelievable. I thought he was going to be nominated for top 3 in Vezina. I still think he should have. Comparatively to Vasilevsky, Sorokin 100% had a better regular season. There's no question in my mind with that, especially with a lot of the defensive deficiencies that the Islanders had with the Pelech and Pollock injuries, and it's just they weren't there defensively even with Barry Trotz. Sorokin was incredible this year. Islanders fans should be excited and happy they have a number one goalie. He's great. He's young. I'm really high on Sorokin. Again, I don't root for New York teams or New Jersey teams. That includes you, the Devils, and mostly football because all of New York's football teams play in New Jersey. They share stadiums, so that's cool. But yeah, Sorokin, tank. Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks. He was one of the bright spots on the Canucks, and I'm glad he gets Vezina votes. He's deserving of it. He played really well on just a dreadful team. So I kind of wanted to give Demko a shout out. Again, as a Bruins fan, I don't like the Canucks. I'm good if they lose every game. That is okay. But I got to give a shout out to Demko. Dude was a tank. And to Bruce Boudreau. I had my doubts about him. I'm going to be honest, but it's a great fit, and I'm kind of happy for Bruce, and I'm happy for the fan base that gets Bruce because the fan base has been suffering for a significant amount of time, and Bruce is a genuinely great guy. So I'm glad that fits well. Last up, Hart Trophy. The last 3 nominees were Austin Matthews of Toronto. They're both blue and white teams with T's. Connor McDavid and Igor Shesterkin. McDavid from the Edmonton Oilers, Shesterkin from the New York Islanders as best goalie. Hart Trophy is essentially for most valuable player in the NHL. The MVP, Matthews wins it. Dude was on a tear this year. Played a very good 200-foot game in addition to just being the elite goal scorer of the NHL. We haven't seen stat lines like he's produced this season in a long time. Same with McDavid, though. McDavid, unbelievable player offensively, and he can play defense too, and he does, and it's impressive. He's someone who cares and plays a 200-foot game. He's not just about the points. He's about winning. These two guys, by far, just the elite among the elite in terms of offensive production. Can play a little defense too. Shesterkin, meanwhile, having an unbelievable season as a goaltender. You can really make a case for any of these 3 guys to win the MVP. Without a doubt, they were the MVP of their teams. Divisions to an extent, because I'm not gonna dive into that. That's a whole tangent. Fifth place was Jonathan Huberdeau of the Florida Panthers. Dude was on a tear with points. Ends up fifth place. Roman Josi ends up in sixth place. Let's keep in mind he finished second in Norris voting and best defenseman. Sixth place overall as MVP. Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild, because I like the Minnesota Wild a lot. I'm a fan of them. Not as much of a Bruins fan, but go Wild. Kaprizov seventh and Cale Makar in eighth for MVP. Meanwhile, he's topping Josi on the defensive Norris chart. So it's interesting once you dive into it. I think for the most part it was pretty clear cut. I had Austin Matthews as my MVP. I had Shesterkin winning the Vezina. I had Moritz Seider winning the Calder. I picked Makar because that's how the Norris Trophy works. Is based off of point production, not necessarily 200-foot play. I have my reservations about that. Roman Josi also had more first-place votes for Norris than Cale Makar. But Roman Josi had a few more third-place votes. And they do a weighted average, essentially, to determine the winner. And Josi barely lost to Cale Makar. So it was really interesting, the voting. I still don't understand why McAvoy's at 4, but that's it for this. It's weird, it's exciting. It's funny to see how these things fizzle out. You got Josi finishing 2 spots ahead of Makar for MVP, but for best defenseman, there's Makar beats Josi, but this is offensive and defensive production, and that's kind of what the Hart Trophy is. And I'm gonna save my reservations for that. Let me know what you guys think. Who should have won it? Do you agree with my Bunting scenario? Little Bunting rant. I'm not a Bunting fan. I think he needs to clean up his game a little bit. You've got a lot he needs to work on. He just happens to be on a line with probably one of the 2 best centers in the league and Mitch Marner. One of the best playmakers and defensive wingers in the game. So, all right, let me know what you guys think. Again, you got to tell me, McAvoy or Fox, who should be ranked higher. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.